Hello, Kyle Koeberlein checking in here. One of the biggest advantages in why you would want to buy Renegade is not necessarily what you can see. I mean, Renegade does a great job with fit and finish and building beautiful coaches, but the box, the build quality, the construction, it's a 30-year coach. When I have a customer here looking at an RV, that's not something you can really see. You just kind of have to give the sales pitch and explain it and do the best job you can. I recently was able to make a trip back up to Renegade, and so I captured some video and some pictures so I could have that to share with everyone. And hopefully we'll do a pretty good job of explaining. I may not know all the technical super terms that Renegade uses, but I don't really like using terms that people don't understand. I'd much rather explain in layman terms, like what you're getting and why it's built a certain way. And so we'll go over all that. And then, of course, I didn't have a chance to take any video of myself at the plant, like standing in front of it and doing like, oh, check all this stuff out. So I'm just going to talk through the video that I've already created, and that way I can explain what you're looking at. And once again, people are always welcome to reach out to me with any questions or concerns in any way that I can help. So here we are outside of the plant. This is the backside of plant 2. You can see some completed units down on the end there, or maybe waiting on some other parts. And you got some chassis sitting here as well, ready for production. You can see this is underneath the frame rail and the chassis, where they've got that box that now extends underneath of the rail for additional storage or being able to slide in longer items. You saw all the welding in the hitch. And of course, you can see the framing before they start mounting the boxes. I mean, Renegade builds all those steel boxes in-house. You can see the rack and pinion. That's a lift slide system that's built into the floor. You can see the 275-gallon tanks for black and gray water. All robust, well built. You can see some wiring going through the center of the chassis there. I mean, there's a lot of wiring, but they do a pretty good job of keeping it organized and labeled. I mean, just look at the structure of that floor is insane. If you ever get a chance to look at another plant, I mean, the difference is night and day. On the bottom of the floor, between the outside and the inside, when you have metal, between a barrier, versus a lot of manufacturers using a fabric. I mean, no mice, no rodents are going to be able to chew through that. You can see the in-floor slide mechanism. Biggest advantage there is from the inside. When you put your slide out, it's very flush with the wall. Back of the Freightliner cab that's cut out. It's just neat to see kind of how all that stuff is done. I mean, the construction here, that rod down the center that goes back up underneath the floor, there is a way to get onto that if you ever had to manually crank a slide in. I don't hear that very often. Once again, just the welding and the construction around the fuel tank for the steps going into the cab. Your stacked 2x4s, all your ductwork for your heating system. This is a Valencia. You can tell by the fuel coming out of the center back there. Plumbing coming up to the floor. That's the insulation they use. It's a wool grade material, which has an extremely high sound deadening value, so the ride in the coach is very quiet compared to most other manufacturers. PEX piping, which is basically indestructible. The weakest link in plumbing of that nature is definitely fittings. But with some education from someone like myself and some common sense as far as using your coach in colder climates, I mean, you'll be fine. That super sandwich floor, when they get done, I mean, it's 9 inches thick. Plywood on the steps. I mean, that's 3/4 inch plywood. It's not 1/4 inch, it's 3/4. And then if you look, like where the 2x4s come down on the wall and you got that lip that sticks out, the Renegade wall not only mounts and is bonded to the side, it has structural support, on the downward force as well. Very few manufacturers are doing that. You can see the thickness of the fiberglass in the walls with the reference of the key. Once again, it's where you got to see how other people are building them to really appreciate that. Aluminum tube structure in the wall. You got fiberglass inside and outside on the wall. There's nothing in that wall that can swell. This is your roof structure. Same thing, one piece fiberglass roof on the top. So as far as like maintenance and stuff that has to be done, I mean, just checking some seals annually on the roof. I've walked on a Renegade roof myself. I mean, it's solid. Once again, another key reference, that's the roof construction. You can see the reference of how thick the fiberglass is to the key. The structure, I mean, I know some of this is kind of drawn out a little bit, just appreciating the structure and how they build them. I personally have an RV, and it's not a Renegade, and I don't want to name a brand, and we love our coach, but there's definitely things that I would just love to have as far as how Renegade is building their units. You can see the wood structure in the ceiling to support the ceiling panels, and then of course that allows them to run wiring and ductwork as well. Those blue lines, this is what's really cool about Renegade. The blue lines you see coming out of the HVAC holes, that's actually drain lines, so that the water coming out of the HVAC systems, the condensation, doesn't just run down the side of your coach and cause black streaking. It looks terrible. They actually plumb all that underneath the coach. 3/4 inch plywood floor. You know, being on the Freightliner chassis, I mean, they can build these rigs so robust, and you still have a large payload capacity. Just showing just the large amounts of materials and some of the Luan they use in the ceiling for the padded ceilings. I think I show that here in a minute. You know, Renegade did not have any shortage of materials while I was up there. That's your padded ceiling panels that they use. They back that to some Luan, and that's mounted to the ceiling on that wood structure. The two-piece fiberglass rear cap before it's painted. I mean, they do a lot of sanding and final detail on that. The cutouts where they put the lights in for LED, you know, your stop, turn, and tail. They got a couple shower inserts sitting around. I'm a detailed individual. I really like to see like how stuff is built or what it looks like behind the scenes, or, you know, when you're in your shower, it's like, you know, how's the plumbing all situated behind there as far as like how clean the job was done. I'm sure some have noticed I slowed the video footage down a little just to give myself time to kind of talk about what you're looking at. Some of the stuff, you know, like these shower inserts, just not a lot to say. And so they've, you know, we'll move on to this is a slide cutout where they're putting in a slide for the bedroom. You know, the platform that the bed sits on actually is stationary, so the bed platform itself, like the lift part, so you can get to your water tanks, actually slides on top of that box. You can see that platform on the right here in the photo where it's, I mean, that aluminum tube structure, I mean, it's super robust and sturdy. I mean, that's an easy one to see when you actually look at a Renegade, is to go back there and lift up that bed just to look how well that's made. That's the cutout where your TV entertainment center goes. Some of the smaller slides on the Renegades use the Swintech system. That system is very clean, it works very well. If you've ever heard bad things about Swintech, it's not that it's a bad system. You know, the manufacturers just ask too much of that system by putting too much weight or maxing out the payload of that system. And then they didn't factor in like customers putting their water and food and sitting and all that kind of stuff behind that flap at the top of those motors in the Swintech system. So if you ever have to manually push in a Swintech slide, you got to push those motors up out of the track, and then two people can push that slide in. I'm not gonna lie, it's not gonna be the easiest thing to do in the world, but it is doable so that you're not stranded. just showing the quality of the structure of that slide and the aluminum framing that's in it. One thing I've noticed about Renegade compared to some of the other plants too is just how neat and tidy their plant is. If you look there in that back left-hand corner, you see a little PVC pipe sticking up with a cap on it. That's a super neat feature that Renegade does that a lot of people don't know about. Is if you ever need to run an additional outlet to a box, or if you're trying to add some accessory, you know, you want a 12 volt. I mean, we've had a situation where somebody wanted to add like an additional refrigerator, like outside slide drawer freezer, one of the 12 volt, 112 volt systems. That gives you access to run a wire down through the floor without having to cut any holes. But that's the backside of your circuit breakers. There's that pipe coming up with the cap on it that you can take off, and that gives you access to below the coach. That is Renegade's, in the background there, that's Renegade's water jet. So that's another awesome feature about Renegade, is that on the labeling in their control bay and the wet bay, is all that stuff is cut with a water jet, so you don't have to worry about stickers or stuff peeling off over the years. I mean, it's never going to go away. Just for fun, the backside of some of the macerator toilets, you saw some windows a little earlier, stack of propane tanks sitting around, just to kind of give you an idea of what, you know, just what's going on at the plant. Like I said, they seem to have a decent amount of material up there for building these units right now. Here's some of the Renegades over in the finish area being cleaned up. Just cool to see them all lined up inside the plant. That rig's got that racing package grill in the front. Renegade did a killer job on that cab over bunk for the Verona. They really made it fit real well and flow with the coach. This is at the welding area when they're putting together the lift coast slides and mounting the actual body framework to the chassis. So it's not welded to the chassis. That is not recommended by the manufacturer. So you can see in the picture there, you've got a composite material that's put between the steel framing of the box and the steel framing of the chassis, just for corrosion purposes, to keep, you know, the life of the coach. And that is U-bolted to the frame. You can see they've got some flame retardant material wrapped around all the chassis wirings, because they're, you know, at this point they're doing a lot of welding that's on it's not to the chassis, but welding around that chassis. The steel boxes that Renegade builds in-house, I mean, a lot of the manufacturers are using plastic bins for the most part. I mean, this stuff is, I've personally, if you haven't seen me laying in one of the boxes, they're sturdy. You can put some serious weight in those boxes. And it's awesome that they're building that box. It goes back a little bit deeper under the rail, just for longer stuff like, you know, certain chairs you might be using, or a folding table. You can see that flange sticking out, you know, where the wall can sit on top of it, and then also be bolted to the side. So, you know, you don't get that wall going like this from side to side, and you don't get the wall wanting to shift up and down, because it's supported in both directions. Most manufacturers by far either mount their wall on top of the floor or mount their wall to the side of the floor. That picture shows a coach. That's actually over in service that they do there at the plant, and do a lot of the custom work that after they're built. You know, people that want to turn bunk areas into offices and kennels and all this. If you can imagine it, they can probably do it after the unit's been built. Just showing the steel boxes they're built before they've got doors mounted on them. Just how sturdy your step well is built the same way. This is, I'm not currently an XL dealer. I'd love to be an XL dealer, but this shows an RV in their shower room or their rain room, where they, you know, water test the units to make sure they're not going to have any water issues. pretty neat simulating, the rain, just to really do the quality control, and by the time the unit makes it to the customer. And then we also do our part as far as when these coaches come in. I mean, we go through them for 4 to 6 hours, just making sure that every system and component works like it's supposed to before you take delivery. I want to thank everybody again for taking the time to watch another one of my videos. I love ideas, so if there's something that you would like to see done, or something that would help you feel more comfortable about your RV search, whether it be a Renegade or something similar, I'm here to help. I'm not here to sell you an RV today. I'd love to do business with people and do what I can, but I want to help you through the process of figuring out what's going to work best for you. And ultimately, when you're out there on the road and I run into you at a campground, or you meet me somewhere, you're happy to see me and you feel like you can trust me. So if you've got ideas for videos that you'd like to see, or just any questions, always feel free to reach out to me, and always happy to help.